During one of the most extreme snow dumps the UK has seen in recent years, me, Graeme and Harry Parkhill from the Entmoot Podcast TM travelled to the Peak District to attend the Scouring of Cheshire tournament in Stockport. I'd brought a mixed elves list with Galadriel and Hemira, 10 Galadrim, 4 Guard of the Galadrim Court, and a Sentinel. I had Elrond with 4 knights, 1 with a banner, and I had Gildor and Glorion with 8 of his exiles. That gave me 13 bows in total. I must admit I wasn't going to bring Galadriel's mirror because I was going to bring a couple more Guard of the Court. However, having just finished them the night before, I was taking some celebratory pictures and... No! I dropped my camera on them. Spears and bases broken, and for this one the head sheared right off. Still, we ploughed on, and if you've seen the first video, you know we had an epically delayed journey, which led at its zenith to me painting my miniatures in standstill traffic on the M1. After nearly 5 hours of travelling, we finally made our grand entrance.
Welcome to your new home, Alex. How do you feel?
This has been twice a day, you know that.
At least it seems appropriate that my snow elves and my snow display board would start the tournament stuck in a snowdrift. Welcome to Battle Camper. As day 2 dawned and I took the dog out for a walk, it became apparent that whilst the snow was melting, the wind had taken its toll. It was genuinely hard to decide who looked more deflated, Harry or his tent. On the way to the venue, you could see that the world had done to the snow what it does to everyone else. Taking what at first made it beautiful and ground it down into a hopeless brown sludge. Still, we arrived at the ever-excellent Element Games where the external forces of existential dread can't touch us, and got straight to the tables to set up for Game 1. My first game would be against Sam Linsell and his Rise of the Necromancer. Now, I'd not played this legion before, but I'd been warned in no uncertain terms not necessarily to expect a good time. The legion consists of the Necromancer and his Wraiths of Dol Guldur. The thing is, they're all heroes, and if you kill one, they resurrect on a 2+. You can make life easier for yourself by killing the Necromancer, but that's no mean feat. It is a powerful caster with 25 will. And here I was, proud of Galadriel's 6. Now there are a bunch of wraiths here. There's the Witch King of Angmar, Camul the Easterling, the Dark Headsman, the Forsaken, the Lingering Shadow, 2 Abyssal Knights and 2 Slayers of Men. We can deal with who does what, why and where when they come up in the game. The game is hold ground, basically just capture that centre objective and have more miniatures within 3 inches by the end of the game than the other player. We're just going to speed our way through to the point at which the good stuff happens because there was a lot of shuffling about and manoeuvring before we got to what we all came here to see, senseless acts of fantasy violence. I sent my knights forward to seize the objective and stop them getting onto it. Now this would have been a respectable strategy had they been a more typical army that also had to walk onto the objective, but the Wraiths of Dol Guldur are not a typical army for reasons that will become apparent, and this was probably an error. I should really have kept them in reserve until I knew that I needed the hitting power. Still, we are where we are, and this is where it starts. Sam was moving with the Necromancer and had set his eyes on a valuable early target.
That is a banner, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to scoot forward 2 inches, and then I'm going to throw 1 will plus a free one. I'm going to try and compel your banner into a charge.
Which you get? Where's he going?
6. Well, I'm just going to compel you forward into both of them.
Cool, okay. Nicely done.
And then all I'm going to do is I'm going to be cheeky and I'm just going to drop 2 inches back.
What an arsehole.
Yeah, pretty much.
With my shooting being a big whole lot of nothing, we were straight onto the only combat for the turn. He's fighting Camul the Easterling and the Forsaken.
So I did charge,
Yes, you
so
did.
I get
You
the
still
bonus
got
attack.
charge. So that's nice.
With the banner minusing 1, I unsurprisingly lost that combat.
So yeah, we'll start with Forsaken. Strength 4, defense 6.
Defense 6, yeah.
Looking for 5s with a reroll. That's a dead banner.
And the banner is gone.
Yep.
So, not a cracking start. But you know what they say? Banners are completely useless and have never helped anyone ever. Right. Right?
I want a big 1.
So I rolled a 4, so
So it's yours.
I'll take the priority for this one.
I'll call with Elrond.
I'll counter call with Camul.
Okay, we'll roll off then.
Does
goes to
I'm
evil.
afraid.
So, the ghosties moved first, and of course they tied up all the riders, including Elrond, thus shutting off his heroic move.
And that will cancel out your heroic move.
It will.
In his move phase, the Necromancer cast both Shroud of Shadows on himself to make himself invisible and untargetable, and also Transfix on Elrond to stop him from making strikes or from using a heroic action. He could cast 2 powers because he's in the Legendary Legion, Rise of the Necromancer. And it's a bloody faff, to be perfectly frank. Don't worry though, I finally had guys in range who could come to their rescue. Though they would need to pass some terror checks.
We're going to try this guy with the bow.
So I moseyed on in where I could, and I was feeling rather pleased with how many elves made the charge and how many wraiths I'd managed to trap. It was then time to decide what Galadriel would do, and I decided I should try and transfix the one wraith that Elrond was in combat with to even the odds. I used Galadriel's free point of will, which she gets every turn, and 2 extras. The reason, in my own words, was...
just to make sure it happens.
It didn't happen. Galadriel fluffed her roll, and a trapped Elrond was still very much in trouble.
So that fails to go off then.
Fails to go off.
With that unfortunate episode behind me, I completed my move, shuffling up Galadriel's mirror, the banner, and the reinforcements for next turn. The ghosts turned out not to be as fighty as I'd expected. They killed a knight, but I killed 2 in return. Though obviously, they'd be back.
Here we go again.
3, not ideal. 4.
You may already know that at the beginning of the game, Elrond can roll a d6 and he generates that number of foresight points, and you can spend foresight points to change his priority roll. I'd rolled a 1 at the beginning of this game, and I decided to spend that point now to take priority. That was a mistake because there's still a lot of might on the table, so he simply called a move, and I called a move, which means we might as well both have just called moves.
Right, so now I roll my resurrections. So I'll roll for the Abyssal Knight first. He resurrects.
The Abyssal Knight rolled first, and he got straight back up. When the wraiths resurrect, they're placed within 6 inches of their dying position, so he zipped over to be a general annoyance to my sentinel.
And then I'll roll for the headsman, see if he gets back up. Yes, he does. Hooray! Right, let's see. That's a very vulnerable looking archer. Let's go and menace him.
We then did the heroic moves roll off, which I won, and it meant that I could turn his off. Now at this point I'm getting into that classic MESBG funk where the fewer models there are on the table, the longer it takes you to do anything. You want to get every move right, and so as you can see on screen, even at 2000% speed, I'm basically doing nothing. Still, as we came to Elrond, it was time for the day's first Wrath of Bruenning. You may recall that this knocks all models within 3 inches prone and does a strength 2 hit each. Elrond will cast it on a 4.
I'm going to use 2 dice to do it, after previous experience.
Cool.
We cast it on a 5.
So I'm going to throw 1 will and 1 freebie at it.
No!
Oh, don't. Okay, so down we go.
So they all go down,
yes,
and
all
we're
4
on
of us go prone.
strength 2 hits. So on this guy on the right here. Nope. That's a big one.
With the majority of the wraiths down, I turned my attention to the Necromancer.
Gildor is going to move out to there and try and immobilise the Necromancer.
I figured he probably would.
It's a big one. I'm doing 3 will.
So, throw them all at it.
Yeah, exactly. So
Okay.
That's a big fluff.
I got it.
You did. You got it.
Cool.
Okay,
so
fine.
I'll have none of that.
He's going to charge this guy here. That's double 1. He's going to stay right where he is.
He's going to just...
So with Gildor having failed to immobilise and then failed to charge, we turn to Galadriel in the hope that she can come and bail us all out.
We need this to go off. And I need to go off big. So
it's got to go. It has to happen.
I hope you're enjoying this anticipation, you know, this kind of cool moment where Galadriel's going to come and try and save the day. Savour it for a moment because I now have to apologise for a technical issue. The main camera taking all the audio from the 2 lapel mics, that's now kaput for the next half an hour or so. I am genuinely really sorry about that, but it will be me narrating for the next little bit. It's a bit of a heart-sinking moment when you realise what was in the bit of footage that you lost. In this instance, I was both proud of the way that I played this game and kind of hoped to show it off, to be honest, but also Sam was a really great guy to play, so I'm disappointed not to show him off as well, if that doesn't sound incredibly weird. Anyway, it was sort of a scrum from here on out, which is what you'd expect in Hold Ground when everyone is just trying to get onto that central objective. The challenges for me were 1, tying up the Necromancer, and 2, stopping the wraiths from regenerating into positions that would cause me problems later. I had hoped that Galadriel, with her many immobilizers, would deal with the first problem, but she actually wasn't much use to me in this game, and often found herself transfixed before she could act. It therefore fell to Gildor Inglorion, who you can see there in combat with the Necromancer. Gildor had charged the Necromancer to lock him in place, and not only did he survive, but he actually put a few wounds on the Necromancer. This caused the Necromancer to spend a lot of his will as Fate, which is one of his special rules, and of course if he runs out of will, he's just going to disappear. Now Gildor is assigned to my Patreon Archimede, so thank you so much. He was definitely MVP in this moment. With regard to the second problem with stopping the wraiths from getting onto the objective through their regeneration, I didn't handle that very well. You'll see that I'd essentially moved my army past the objective and tried to swarm the wraiths, which in other circumstances would have been a suitable tactic, but given they can teleport, was a big oversight. In fact, I'd have been better off not trying to kill them, because they didn't really mind dying, and they'd simply come back where they could cause me the most problems. So, towards the end of the game, it was just about using every trick available in priority and move-offs to try and block up every inch of available space around the objective so that cheeky wraiths couldn't just teleport up into there and block off that valuable real estate. I think Sam played it well, but in hold ground, the odds were stacked against him when he's outnumbered 3-1. In addition, the dice weren't really with him. I killed a lot of wraiths. I certainly killed more wraiths than he killed elves. And he fluffed a lot of his resurrection rolls, which means he was spending a lot of might trying to bring wraiths back, which then wasn't available to win duel rolls and move-offs later. In fact, I actually ended up getting 2 wraiths permanently off the board. The final score was 7-0 to me, so with many thanks to Sam for an excellent game, and many apologies to you for screwing up the recording again. Next, it was lunchtime, which means one of my favourite bits, ogling all the entries into the painting competition. We'll set the bar low with my weird and bad display board. Now, I'd panic built this in the days before the event, and it does look bad. I don't want anyone in the comments to be like, oh mate, no, it's fine, mate, it looks great, it looks good, because it doesn't. It doesn't look great, it looks bad, and I've made my peace with that. Especially because my next one did look a lot better, which you'd know if you were in the Facebook group. So come join the Facebook group, where for some reason there is an actual video of me retching at the stench of my dog's excrement. So join, there's better stuff too, join the Facebook group. Don't worry, there were good display boards too. As always, the MESBG community knocked it out of the park. This beautiful rendition of the Bjornings is by Chris Hales. The Serpent Horde are by Steve Thorley, and it really makes me want to go to a 1,000-point game and take a 3-mummock list, but don't at me on that. This Rangers of Ithilien board is by the ever-excellent Tom Marshall. I love the multi-layers and the really dense foliage that just sells it so well. There was also this exceptional Signals Tower for Azog's Legion doubling up as a display board. This one won Best Painted, and it is clearly well deserved. If you want to look at how carefully planned it has been, you'll note that lighting has been painted onto the wall where the orcs with the torches are going to stand. The metals are all non-metallic, and it's just come together so bright and lively and moody. Expertly done. Game 5 was Destroy the Supplies, usually one I look forward to when I'm playing my Rohan. I'd be playing Stephen and his Defenders of Erebor. His army was Dane Ironfoot with 7 Iron Hill Spears and 1 Goat Rider, Thorin III with 7 Iron Hill Spears and 1 Goat Rider, Bard King of Dale with 4 Knights and 3 Esgaroth Bows, and Bard II with, you guessed it, 4 Knights and 3 Esgaroth Bows. I'd not played this Legion before, or either army, or Stephen for that matter, so I didn't really know what I was in for. For anyone who doesn't know, in Destroy the Supplies there are 6 objective markers, 3 across your deployment line and 3 across their deployment line, and in a nutshell, you're trying to destroy the supplies across their deployment zone. My cavalry have been helpfully deployed off-screen, behind that big desert rock down there.
Cool, so we're on to first turn priority then. Good luck.
Good luck,
Have
my friend.
fun.
You too.
Let's do it. 5?
2.
No heroics, I assume?
We all just shuffled up in the move phase, and more importantly, I fixed the perspective on my camera so that at the end it looked like this. Priority turn 2 went to Stephen. So we do another classic crossfade movement summary. You can see that my knights on the right are using that little bit of fence to stop themselves from getting swamped. My exiles on the left are cowering behind that big rock, and I've left a few archers behind to grab some shots. My shooting was a big load of nothing, so guess what? We're back to priority.
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 2? Do you want to do any heroics?
No, nothing from me.
So I'd move first, and it was only at this point I realised with horror that my knights don't actually fit through the gap between the ruins and the fence. My plan had been to try and create a line with the infantry and then get some good heroic combats on the right flank. Now I'd need to engage brain and find a new plan. I decided to just charge right up the front, and I'd use my infantry instead to block Stephen's reinforcements. Once again, on the way in, Elrond would be Wrath of Bruininning him.
Elrond has 3 will. I'm going to use 2 of his dice. 6. Very good. Very good.
I'll resist with 2, I think. Might as well.
Real Wrath of Bruining, actually.
4 5s.
Going to be worth a might point, I think.
It is, isn't it? Yeah.
So Thorin had spent 2 will and a might, but it had saved his goat riders from being dismounted immediately and from potentially a lot of pain in his front rank this turn. Finally, my banner went to block up the right end of the flank, which was dangerous, but I needed to stop him from getting behind me. With the rest of my move, I created that infantry line and basically just braced for impact. When Galadriel moved, she wanted to get an immobilize off on Thorin to stop him from doing heroic combat shenanigans this turn.
Like that.
In that case, I'll just use the 3-1 and 1 will.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay.
It's cast on a 4.
He'll have to resist with his last one. Yep, so needs a 4+, is it?
No.
Not worth the might.
So that was Thorin now immobilized, and it was time for me to finally finish my exorbitantly long move phase. Lastly, you'll note that some of my exiles have darted up behind that far rock just to nip out and destroy the supplies before beating a hasty retreat. With his move, Stephen's line advanced and he surrounded the knight at the left of my line, who was preparing for what I'm sure was going to be a brutal combat phase. As is tradition, the shooting phase passed entirely without incident,
Worth a try.
Inept on both sides.
and we were on to the fight phase.
Yep. King Bran's going to call a combat, I think, there.
I countercalled with Elrond, hoping he'd go first and I could stop him from being trapped before the dwarves got the chance to encircle him. Turns out, Stevens went off anyway. So one knight versus King Brand and a few of his warriors it is then.
My hero, basically.
Only on a 2.
On
Or
a
a
5.
5. I'm going to assume that none of my banners are no and no, so nothing I can do with that. And I'm definitely trapped.
There was actually only one more casualty in the entire fight phase, and that was this rider's horse. This meant, sadly, my unpainted dismounts came back into play.
Free early, I can actually join the frame.
Now, just briefly, if you're wondering why this is all sort of top-down and me-talky, again, the cameras for the players aren't working at the moment. Sincere apologies, I promise I've been to my next tournament by the time I've edited this, and in that one everything works throughout both days, so this is the exception, it's not the rule. Anyway, I'd normally just sort of cut down on the bits where I can't get all the angles and things, but this turn is important, so we're going to cover it. This was the first of those classic MESBG movement phases where everyone is just trying to shuffle in and lock up what they want where they want it. I had the added consideration of trying to protect Galadriel to stop her from being kicked into the dust by a goat. Galadriel attempted to immobilize Thorin and rolled a 6, which means he'd need his own 6 to strike up and fight this turn. Stephen attempted it on 2 dice. And that's a mega roll. The double 6 means he doesn't even lose the will points. In the far corner, you'll see a pair of sneaky PJ elves are now sitting on one of the objectives, which means that will be the first cache of supplies to go boom, unless they get shot, obviously. The move phase then continued, and by the end of it, there was a menacing-looking heroic combat at the left-hand side of my line. King Bran did a strike, and so I decided that Elrond should too, in the very likely event that that combat went off successfully. Stephen did his strike first, and it took him to fight 8. Then got a 6 on his duel roll, making it impossible for my knight to win. He then succeeded in killing the knight and passed a bunch of courage checks to get a very menacing-looking trap around Elrond. In the boring fights, I lost 2 elves and killed nothing in return. It was then time for Big Hugo Weaving to show what he's really made of. I got a 2 on my strike roll, which meant that we were drawing our fight value. In the duel roll, Stephen got a 6. I initially didn't, but then with my Lord of the West reroll, I just snatched it at the last opportunity. So, it was time for the most stressful roll-off to see who would win it. I was feeling confident because I win on a 3+ due to my elven-made weapon. Let's tune in.
Good luck. Oh no.
Yeah, I don't think you need further explanation. Stephen rolled 3 handfuls of dice and got 6 wounds, which means even my 3 re-rollable fate could not save me. Elrond was quickly followed into the dirt by my banner, and the last of my cavalry was gone. On the upside, however, my camera with the lapel microphones is back and working. Yay!
4-4. I had it last time.
It goes to me.
So Stephen got priority, but that's fine. That's fine. I mean, he needed a break, obviously. I'm not salty. I'm really, really f***ing salty.
I think I'm going to have to call with Galadriel so that she doesn't get utterly trashed.
Yeah, I'm going to have to call it with Brand.
It's your priority.
Yeah. It goes to you.
Mine.
Galadriel attempted a compel, but again failed it, so she just went into her normal move. By the end of the moves, my elves had swarmed the left flank, but the men and the dwarves were looking very strong in the right flank. All I really needed to do was form a net, because I was winning on objectives. I just had to stop any of their models slipping through and getting to mine before the game ended. Then began a brutal round of combat in which I lost 4 elves and killed only 1 man of Dale in return.
We've got one. We've got one.
My right flank had been entirely eradicated, and that pesky goat was in prime position to head off and destroy the supplies on my side of the board. To stay in the game, I had to move next, in order to immobilise the goat and lock up the other models that might otherwise stop my casters from casting.
Bloody hell! Right.
Big priority.
Big priority. 5, 3. Any heroics?
Yeah, it's going to have to be a move with foreign again.
I'm going to move with Galadriel.
Yes, makes sense.
This is it then. If I take this, I can win.
Oh, yours. Saw a 6 splash then.
I did as well.
Stephen's heroic move didn't catch the goat, but it didn't really need to. He locked up everyone else and stopped my casters from being able to cast, so no immobilise this turn. The only thing I could do is move that one archer over to tag that dwarf and I guess hope that the goat breaks an ankle or something. I don't know, it's still got its priority move, so... No, there he goes. Ankle's intact and everything. Goats are dangerous, man, I tell you. The ensuing combats were reasonably successful. We lost a couple of models apiece, but I won a lot of fights. At this stage, though, it didn't help me. My one remaining hope was that Gildor could use his might that he'd saved all game to march over towards where the goat was about to destroy the supplies and then immobilise him before he could, being that this was probably the last turn. But unfortunately, Stephen took priority and he locked Gildor up before he could do it. In the end, Stephen won 6-2. He definitely deserved it. I threw my cavalry in with reckless abandon. He took that opportunity to destroy them before moving on to the rest of my force, simply locked them up, and then had one goat go and do the business. Simple plan, but super effective. So we're into the last game of the tournament, and oh look, there is no sound on the lapel mics for the first half an hour. There is no sound from the lapel mics for the first half an hour. There is no sound from the lapel mics for the first half. This video has just been a complete shit show, and I apologise. I apologise profusely. I've let myself down, the channel down, and indeed the country down. I promise sound will come later, but for the moment we are in movie mode rather than talkie mode. The last game was Lords of Battle. I'd be playing Nicholas Greaves and his army of Thror. This is Thror with 18 Guardians of the King, Thrain the Not Yet Broken with 4 Warriors of Erebor with shield, 10 Warriors of Erebor with spears and shields, and 1 Warrior of Erebor with a shield, spear and banner. There is then a Captain of Erebor with a shield, he has 2 Warriors of Erebor with shields, and 9 Warriors of Erebor with shields and spears. I'm therefore outnumbered by a rate of about 50%. I also note that I'm back on the board I started on at the beginning of day 1. I was a little bit disappointed that I didn't get to play on any of the nice fancy 3D boards at all this weekend. There wasn't much strategy to deployment, both armies just basically lined up, as you kind of expect in Lords of Battle. My hope was that I could just sit back and get a good couple of rounds of shooting in to whittle him down before I actually had to commit to combat. I know that I could win the majority of the fights once he gets here, however, that doesn't mean that's actually going to translate into any kills. He's going to be able to kill me quite easily. I need to scrape together the advantages I have, and that's bows and magic.
It's yours? Nothing from me, no. I'm sure.
So here's the dwarves' first turn move. They just came at me as fast as they possibly could, which wasn't very fast, and I did absolutely nothing. I just sat there, not moved an inch. What a sweaty little scrab. So with my 4 cavalry archers, I'd be re-rolling hits because they're stood by Elrond. I was feeling good about the prospect of some effective MESBG shooting.
Good job for that reroll. They're pretty robust. Oh, yeah, good.
Oh no, my mistake. Dice are arseholes. That's my wisdom. If you take one thing away from this video, it's that dice are arseholes. The PJ Elves did outshine their more regal kin and picked off a dwarf. Finally, it's time to see how my 4 Lothlorien bows got on.
Oh! Ugh, I'm bad at this.
Yeah, great. Thanks a lot, guys.
There you go, that's my shooting, so on to priority.
Nicholas again moved up, and I again just sat there and elected to wait and shoot. Well, they don't call me Battle Camper for nothing. This time the knights managed to hit with everything, and...
6s.
The Lothlorien bows then picked one of their own off. So I've shot dead 4 dwarves in 2 turns, which might not sound amazing, but look at it this way. It means that I've reduced their numbers by nearly 10% before the first piercing strike has been declared. Now, I had to do a little bit more than just sit there this turn because the dwarves had called a march, which means they could move up to my line and then use their throwing weapons. I decided to call a heroic channeling with Galadriel and cast Blinding Light to offer myself some protection.
Gildor's going to move out. Yep. It's a risk, because if he doesn't go off, he's going to get absolutely trash. Staying 12 inches away from that guy. Let's go into here.
So this is Gildor taking a big risk and moving out into the field in order to try and immobilise the dwarf that had called the march. I cast it on 2 dice and managed to hoik myself a 5. Kudos to Nicholas here because I was going to cast on 1 will and he reminded me that the captain has a will of his own to resist with and invited me to rethink, which genuinely is awesome sportsmanship.
Oh, so close. And then the rest of his move, he's just moving back into position. And that's it.
After this, the dwarves again moved up and they were finally closing the range. It looked like this would probably be the elves' last uninterrupted volley. As terrifying as that is, at least the dwarves did look fantastic, and so the closer they got, the more I got to enjoy that. You can tell when an army is a labour of love, and this is definitely it. We ended up popping just 1 more dwarf in the shooting phase and it was back to priority. I took priority and I made a move that was both annoying and poor, which I think is the worst kind of move, one that makes you both a jerk and a moron. Basically, I realised that I was very far back and if I wasn't careful I was going to get trapped against the board edge. Since I had priority, I couldn't move forward because I would move into charge range, and so I decided to try and get out of the way, but I did that by breaking up my forces and going both left and right. In their move, the dwarves gave chase and it looked like open war was upon me whether I would risk it or not. We had agreed that the slopes on the hills were difficult terrain, and that I felt was going to come in handy on that left-hand side. On the right, I'd kept my knights with my wood elves to try and get some speedy traps later in the game. So we were yet again back to priority. The dwarves won it this time, and I didn't call any heroics. They called a march on the left there, trying to close ground with my elves. At the end of the dwarves' move, the board looked like this, and I set about making the game's first charges with my knights. In fact, at the end of my move, you'll see that I also committed with the Galadriel on the left. The only group keeping their distance was Gildor and his exiles, who were basically just trying to keep their noses clean. On the way in, Elrond had predictably Wrath of Bruin Indinned. He'd not caught any of the heroes, so they couldn't resist it with their will, but he had knocked down this front rank of dwarves. The fight started poorly when my charging knight was defeated and then killed. I then lost basically all my fights, and another Galadriel on the left, and only Elrond actually got me any kills for the turn. Well, he got me 1 kill.
Priority then.
The dwarves called a move with Thrain, and I countercalled with Elrond. This would be a big one. I wanted to get some charge bonuses for my cavalry and stop them from getting trapped.
Okay, so, yeah, 1, 2, 3, it's you. Oh, the one time I roll high.
with this guy.
Having won that roll-off, I did my very best to use my 4 remaining knights to try and create a wall, blocking the dwarves between the knights and that ruin. Realistically, there were certainly some dicey situations incoming. Gildor also attempted to immobilise Thror and got it on a 5 because he's a good little boy, but Thror rolled a 4 to resist and then mited it up. My wood elves moved up to finish boxing in those dwarves by the ruins. I just needed to hold his big heroes in place for the moment. The Galadriel on the left also just scooted in. I used Galadriel's Compel and the power on my Sentinel to take both the Dwarven Banner and Captain out of range for the turn. Also, good news, the sound and the second camera angle are back. Bad news is that they were actually back half an hour ago, but I just didn't realise and carried on editing, and there's just no way in hell that I'm going back and re-editing essentially the whole video, so we are where we are now. The fights were once again pretty brutal, and I took a number of elves off the right-hand side where I really needed to be keeping the numbers. Whilst I took 1 dwarf with me, I lost 2 of my Knights of Rivendell.
Let's go.
Okay, roll for
Quite
priority.
an important one. How many? I can't lose.
Well, unless I want to spend my points.
I'm gonna roll that dice. Come on, 6s. 3.
I do want to spend 2 points. Who had last turn? I did.
You went last turn, yeah.
So I'd have to spend all 3 of my points, which I will do.
To make that 4.
Yeah.
I'm gonna ring a Durin it.
So we both clearly want priority. I've spent all of my foresight points I generated for Elrond at the beginning of the turn, and he's now going to use the Ring of Durin, which allows him to re-roll his priority roll.
Ah, big 6. I'll call a move with Elrond.
I will call a move with Thror.
It's
That's
mine.
you got dang.
Unlucky.
So Elrond's move went first, and I simply tried to stop my elves from being surrounded. With their last With their priority, that last group of dwarven reinforcements who'd not even really been in the fight yet arrived to support the beleaguered group by the ruins. On the left-hand side, they just squished in to get as much mileage as they possibly could out of the dwarves remaining.
This guy's going to sing his annoying little song.
On whom?
And we'll try and pull the banner out of combat.
6s. Got him.
You got it. So then, to finish his move, he is actually going to join a fight. Minusing 1, so he'd need to be within 5, which he can do. So he's going to just nip up there. Galadriel is going to compel the banner. We're going to spend... It's on 4, so we're going to spend 2 points of will.
Okay.
Let's just get it used, you know.
Oh, no! You can mite it.
I'm miting it. It's the second time in a row that's happened. Thank you.
Going into combats, I called a defensive strike on Elrond, expecting Thror and Thrain to come my way, but then of course, they didn't. So it feels like a bit of a waste of a might, but perhaps it's because I struck they didn't. Being so late in the game, I then called a defense with Gildor's only might for good measure. First up in the combats, it was Thrain, Thror, and 2 more dudes v my 1 lone knight. Happily, I set a high bar with the 6, but they had the fight value and a buttload of attacks.
We'll see if I can... Oh, I do get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm not going to do anything funny with the hammers or anything.
Okay.
And then 3 more.
Spend might, yes.
And then I have a banner reroll, so I'll reroll this one. Nuts, you win that.
Okay.
That's a 3. That means my knight has not only survived, but he knocks everyone prone as well. The knight managed to cut down a warrior. I was pretty happy with that. The ensuing combats were brutal on both sides. With the elves taking the lead in kill count, the pressure was on for the dwarves. Going into what might well be the last turn, the dwarves got priority.
I'm going to call with Galadriel. Cool.
With that move, I simply tied up enough dwarves to keep Galadriel safe, and also stopped the banner from getting back into range.
Here comes the plan. He's going to... Well, it's not good. Okay, so
Nicholas had been talking up this plan for a couple of turns now. I was very intrigued to see what it was. All I knew was to start with, this dwarf would have to throwing weapon this elf out the way.
He's in, he's going to...
Throw a thing.
Oh, he hits. Forced to kill.
Yeah, forced to kill.
Oh, flobbed.
He did flob. He flobbed big time. Flobberation aside, the dwarven move on this right-hand flank showed just how much trouble I was in there.
God dang it.
I was considerably outnumbered. Despite the fact I was ahead on kills at the moment, it wouldn't take much for them to even the odds. From here on out, shielding would be my friend. We started the combats with this trapped knight here, which felt eerily similar to the last turn.
Nothing fancy, so yep.
Not yet. 3 5s.
Ooh, hello. Then 3 from Thrain.
Come on.
Do you want to roll your dice so I can get out of the suspense?
I've no banner, nothing.
Can you back out? I don't think you can.
Let's try it. I think I'm stuck. I'm stuck.
Okay, cool. So that's a 6 because Thrain's got a weapon. Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, yeah.
So the knight finally died, and Thrain was going to use the heroic combat to get in with Elrond.
Thrain's courage check to go into Elrond.
Oh, he's failed it.
You can hear the insufferable giddiness in my voice at that.
That's fine because Thrain can still do it. Yeah.
Okay. And Thrain's got the strike.
Thrain's got the strike, yeah.
Yeah.
He's got 3 will as well, so this should be okay.
It's the same again.
3, so he can spend the 1 will to make it.
Good job he didn't have to resist any Wrath of Bruinens earlier.
What an absolute disaster that was. I'm going to go in there and trap him.
Only 1 additional dwarf succeeded in their courage checks, the rest failed, and we were on to the priority combats. Now, just so you understand why my blood is pumping at this point, I think I'm pretty solidly going to win on the kill count, which gives me 3 victory points because I don't double his count. However, if he breaks me and I don't break him, then he's going to get 3 victory points. If he also wounds my leader, that's another victory point and that will edge him above my tally. So, here comes my role for Elrond in this first duel.
That's not good. I've got my Lord the West.
Oh yeah, do you want to take that?
No, you roll first.
Go on then. 6.
I need it.
Can't win it.
So, with a 6, he's won the duel. I just need Elrond to hold on, or use his re-rollable fate to tank the wounds.
I'll roll the dice, see what we'll get. I think I need 6s. Nout.
Okay.
So far, so good.
5, 6. This will be Thrain. He's strength 4, defense, so he needs 5s.
Oh,
2.
2. Okay, 2 re-rollable fate. Re-rollable.
Flob.
Oh my god, I've got 1 more fate, then I'll put on it. Again, re-rollable. Re-rollable.
Oh no!
2 wounds and out of fate. Poor show, Elrond. Poor show.
That was critical. It now comes down basically to this. If he breaks me, he wins. If I don't break, I win. He needs to kill 2 models in 11 combats to break me.
Let's go into that one.
Well, the 1-1.
Yeah, I'm not going to two-hand or anything, it's fine. 6 high.
You've got it.
Yeah, and then,
No.
cocked.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
No.
Nothing.
Even worse.
Okay, 1 fight down, still looking good. Next it was Gildor's turn via Grimhammer.
3
2
high.
high, banner reroll. 4 high.
But you've got it.
And then 5.
Is that a wound?
What's your defense?
4. So
Yep,
that will
yep,
be.
don't.
So, fate. No, he's lost a wound.
So that's an injured Gildor, and I'm really not acing these fate rolls. Next we're on to this dwarf with a spear support versus this elf
Doesn't
here.
matter, it's disconnected combat. So 2, he will two-hand. So yellow will be the two-hander.
I'm going to shield this guy.
Okay, very good.
3s again.
Oh,
double 1.
Doesn't matter, got banner. I
2s again.
So shielding has won me that fight, and I'm starting to have hope that I can actually win this. Next, these last 2 just above Elrond.
Banner. Nope, you get it.
1 strike. That's a 6.
Oh, you got it.
So 1 side of the board down, and I'm still 2 from breaking.
3 on that. 3 on that guy. So
Yeah,
2 for the
shields.
captain, 1 on that guy. So the
6,
yeah, you
can't
win
take
on
it, but no
5.
strikes.
5.
7 combats left to get 2 kills.
Okay, I'm going to shield again.
Yep.
5.
6. I got a 3 and a cocked.
Yep.
Nuts.
6 combats left.
Oh, is he trapped? No, he's not. He's going to retreat this way.
I can't strike anyway.
And then 3 on that guy.
Yep, I've got 1 and an banner. So the banner is -1, down to 0, and the other one. 6, 4. 6, I'll reroll for the banner.
3 dwarf strikes on the Gladrim. 1-5 gets him halfway to his total.
Oh, no.
Unlucky
Terrible.
dude, that sucks.
Just 4 combats left. 2 elves to go.
Well, I've got the support there.
2 on 1.
6.
3. Yeah, you got him.
Nope.
Fine.
3 left.
2.
Yep, 1, 2.
Got 5.
Oh, you got it.
Take it.
Oh, sorry.
I am on a run of good luck. 2 combats left. He needs a kill per combat.
2 on 1.
We'll do this 1 on 1, then we'll do this 2 on 1.
Okay, 1 on 1. 2.
That stopped filming the last pivotal turn. Yep, it stopped filming the last pivotal turn. Something apparently I realised at the time and then just forgot. I am genuinely so sorry. This whole video has been an absolute catastrophe, and I've been editing this whole thing not realising that I don't have the last little bit. And even though I know the outcome, I was really enjoying building that suspense through those last few really critical combats. Paying it off with a Simpsons gag rather than any kind of conclusion and closure is not how I really wanted it to go. Still, if you really want to know, Nicholas won it. Nicholas broke me at the 11th hour, giving him a 4-3 victory. Very well fought and very well deserved. It was a fantastic nail-biter of a game. I really do hope we meet again. And with that, it was just time for the prizes. Fantastic painter and friend of the channel, Sean Clark, got a very well-deserved win for best theme. Unfortunately, I didn't grab his board at the time, but he's kindly sent me some pictures after the fact, which are on display now. With a 0-6 win-loss, Graeme got the wooden spoon. I do point out that Hayden won it last year, Graeme won it this year. I am gunning for the spoon next year. It was then just time to retrieve the dog, say our goodbyes and head home. It had been another fantastic event. I, of course, was a bit disappointed that I didn't get to play on the snazzy boards, and it would have been nice to get more than 2 wins. But 6 excellent opponents and some fantastic hobby work on display made it what I think the kids are calling a blast. So you'll have no further whinging out of me. The best game had to be the 100-odd Ruffians on day 1, which did feel very close to just basically being a tower defense. Thanks very much again to Steve and the rest of the TOs. I know how much passion goes into these events, and it pays off. It really does show. Now, of course, it's always good practice to thank your patrons, obviously, but I have to give you an extra special thanks this time, because as many of you will already know, the van's bearing on the rear passenger side wheel exploded and took a few of the components with it. I got stranded on the M25, which was suboptimal, but Key and I got to ride in the back of a big truck, so that's fun. It cost a small fortune to repair it, and I simply would not have been able to afford it were it not for the support of the patrons. So you've quite literally kept us on the road. You'll know that I bought a box full of the new print SBG magazine. I'm sending each of you one to say a very sincere thank you. For those of you who didn't know about the van incident, well, you're clearly not on the Facebook group then, are you? So go join the Facebook group, bloody hell. And yeah, thanks for watching. Thank you for watching.
Alex, say something amusing.
I have no capability.
Yeah.
Just can't, I'm sorry.
Look at the content.
There you go. Distract.
Beer in the snow. This is madness. Absolute madness.